What's going on, guys? Chuck here, along with,
Chris.
and we are doing a little video in honor of just recently, within the last couple of, actually, it was sometime a week, I can't remember what the date was, but we lost Paul Reubens, aka Pee Wee Herman. Now, um, Paul Pee Wee, if I want to call him, was a big, um, I don't say he was someone who was really,
Comedian.
really, really prominent in, especially the '80s. He's a cultural icon. Everyone knows Pee Wee Herman. At least when I grew up, he was a huge thing, especially on Saturday mornings. Was Pee Wee's Playhouse is very fondly remembered to this day. Something I watched every Saturday morning. Of course, Paul Reubens was a well-known actor in his own right, as he did a lot of other films besides Pee Wee. He was in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the actual movie, not the TV series. Like I was telling Chris, of course, he was in Batman Returns at a cameo as the father of the Penguin, which, funny enough, he played the father of the Penguin in the Gotham TV series as well, but a lot of other smaller bit parts. But no matter what, he was always known as Pee Wee Herman. So I thought this was a good time to introduce Chris to Pee Wee's Big Adventure. And so I thought it was it's a fun movie. It's classic, a lot of iconic lines. People
Yeah.
still will quote and reference this movie to this day. And I thought, what the heck? Why now's a good time to let Chris see it.
Yeah.
So
Tribute.
yeah. So
Yeah.
right off the bat, what are your thoughts on Pee Wee's Big Adventure?
For I would say a comedy character, they actually pulled off the story really well than what I remember. Of course, it's been like 5,000 years since I've seen it.
Okay, let's clear up. He has never seen this movie.
I've
He's
seen
probably,
I've seen clips and pieces.
yeah, but actually
this
seen it as a
person.
whole. Well, yeah, obviously,
Which is like every movie we've covered on.
yeah, he
here.
sees bits and pieces. But now he's old enough. I sit down and make him watch them. So go ahead.
As I was saying, yeah, as I was saying, I've only seen like clips and pieces of it through my father, and seeing it the full thing, I don't didn't realize that there was so much I missed. That's all I really got to say at the moment.
Okay, so what are some of the things that stuck out to you the most, or that you really remember? I found very entertaining or amusing for you.
I like the only like one scene I remember was a large margin.
Large, that's one of the most famous.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, there's a lot of scenes here that are iconic. Large Marge is one of them. Obviously, the dance, the Big Shoe dance is very big. A lot of the phrases, I know you are, but what am I? I'm a loner dotty, a rebel, stuff like that. Those are very iconic, and people remember those. Um, so yeah, but okay, so you that one you remembered just from you probably seen it a million places. But watching it, the movie itself, is there something that you didn't remember that you seen the first time you like really stuck out that you really enjoyed?
Probably would just be the entire dance scene.
The dance scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another famous scene that I've never seen.
Yeah. And it's funny because watching this, it's been a long time since I've seen this. It's been a few years since I've watched it myself. And as I was telling him, most people, if you're watching this, odds are you probably know. This was, I believe, it was Tim Burton's very first major studio film. And again, not know anything about that. As a kid, watch it as a fun movie. Looking back at it now in my old age, and knowing what Tim Burton's done, I really can. It's really easy to see the nightmare imagery that Tim Burton is known for. It's really prominent throughout this movie, and just something I don't really think about it until now. Stuff like the creepy clown dream sequence.
Yeah.
Even some of the earlier scenes where Pee Wee's like after the whole thing, losing his bike, walking through the dark shadows in the street and the rain, and other kind of just weird lighting and angles, and just a very nightmarish imagery that Tim Burton is known for. And I think the only Tim Burton movie you've probably seen besides this now is Batman and Batman Returns.
Yeah.
He's also done Ed Wood, which is a very good movie. A lot of movies with Johnny Depp. Edward Scissorhands with Johnny Depp. See what else? Sleepy Hollow with Johnny Depp.
How much Johnny Depp are they?
A lot of his movie, him and Johnny Depp were did a lot of stuff together. I believe he did the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory remake, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, starring
Oh, yeah.
Johnny Depp. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, he also he didn't direct, but he was a producer of Nightmare Before Christmas, and that's very Tim Burton. But so what did you think of Pee Wee?
This basically goes back to what I said. For comedian like kids, uh, actor, they pull off a story really well about him losing his bike and going on these crazy adventures.
Mm-hmm.
Thus the name Big Adventure. And the funniest part I would say is when they say they make a movie out of his story, which is
Totally fabricated idea.
It's very accurate.
Which it's kind of a joke for that's what I say when Hollywood makes your story of your life or whatever,
Yeah.
they'll always tweak it and make it more glamorized because obviously James Brolin looks nothing like Pee Wee Herman.
No.
But that's I always get a kick out of that whole it's very meta. I always enjoyed the the whole climax of the scene where he's in Hollywood and Pee Wee gets on the Warner Brothers lot and is running through everything. Of course, it's Warner Brothers film. This is very reminiscent of Blazing Saddles, which is a movie you've never seen either, by Mel Brooks. But it's basically takes place in the West. It's an old Western. It's a movie that wouldn't fly. It's very, very racy, hilarious. Though one of the best Mel Brooks movies ever. But there's a big climactic scene at the end where they actually show up on the Warner Brothers lot because they're making a movie. It's hilarious, but I always love that fourth wall breaking. And it's very but it's
the biggest thing I have about like these kind of movies is the fourth wall breaks.
Mm-hmm.
They're like I always love the idea of interacting with the viewer.
Mm-hmm.
That's always been something I've always liked.
That whole meta thing. Yeah,
it really gives me a joke. Gets a kick out of it. I can never get old of it. You can never get old of it. You know what I mean.
Never get enough of it.
Yeah.
It never gets old. What are you trying to say? Yeah. There we go.
Never not get boring.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good way to put it. Never not boring. That's very good. What do you think of that bike?
Actually, when I first saw it still reminds me of a motorcycle from the 80s, not 80s, 60s. I don't want to.
It's like because it's like a retro because the movie was made in 1985, so the bike is very retro, classic. Like a 60s bike. I know what you're saying. The design of it, which looking back at it now and thinking about this, it's finding interesting that that they base a story around a bicycle. Well, I say that because we talk about in movies 1985, and of course, obviously, bikes are a big thing in this film, especially the BMX bikers. Yeah. And like I was telling you, in the 80s, when I was a kid, BMX bikes were like huge. That was a big thing. It's like later in the 90s, it became skateboards. Yeah. And it was probably skateboarding in the 80s too. I'm not saying it wasn't, but it was really big in the 90s. It's like BMX bikes were huge in the 80s. And I think that's, one of the reasons why it was such a prominent thing. Especially the little gang of BMX bike kids, which is really weird. They always walk around in their BMX bike gear. I don't know what they're doing. It's like a biker gang, but a BMX biker gang. It's really strange. And one thing I was like, the whole ridiculousness of the film. Because if you really think about it, the film was just ridiculous. But in a good way. I mean, and they have what Richard Donner would call they're playing the verisimilitude. They're really buying into the whole idea that there are man children in this place, like Pee Wee and Francis. They're clearly like 30-year-old men acting like they're 12 or younger, and it's okay with everybody. They're just accepting of it. It's weird, but it's still cool. And I would still love to have that bathtub of Francis, which is a really big pool. I thought that was so cool. Yeah, that was cool. But I remember as a kid, I never really had a cool BMX bike, and I could never do all the cool tricks. But I could do the Pee Wee Herman bike tricks. Put my feet off to the side and riding and thinking that was cool. I was telling him, there's a scene.
I think I actually do that without even knowing.
Yeah, that's as awesome as a trick I could do on a bike. But there's a scene where he's doing that, and of course he wrecks and falls in front of a bunch of kids. And jumps up and says, "I meant to do that." I told him I had the same experience as a kid because I was terrible on a bike. I wrecked my bike all the time, but I wiped out in front of a whole school of elementary kids too. I was in like
You didn't tell me that far.
yeah, I was in high school. I think I was riding a bike and I wiped out in front of a school. The afternoon when the school was letting out, and I wiped out in front of all these people were staring at me get on a bus. I just got on a bike and kept on going. But that's what it reminds me of when I saw that.
Embarrassing moment.
Yes, it was, and that's not the first time. I also wiped out in front of a bus stop in front of teenagers this time, and just kept on going. I was horrible on the bike. But
Wipeouts on
yes.
bike. I did a flip. That's true.
Yeah. So as you can see, we're watching a DVD of Pee-wee's Big Adventure, because I haven't upgraded. And I probably should. It's one we've had for a while. This particular DVD, it wasn't too bad, but you can tell it looked a little. It's an older DVD, so projected on the big screen, it was a little fuzzy point, but only on the fine details. Overall, it's pretty good. This is something I'm actually currently in the process of making a list of movies I need to upgrade because I have a lot of DVDs still on the shelf, and but this is definitely one of them. But yeah, so this I just thought this was a good way to honor Paul Reubens and introduce Chris to him because he never got to experience the joy and wonderment that was Pee-wee Herman. So what better way than to take Chris on Pee-wee's Big Adventure? So at the end of the day, what would you give Pee-wee's Big Adventure?
It's 10 out of 10. It's still charged. I think if I was here back when it came out and now, I think it would still hold up.
Yeah, it does. I think it really has obviously it's... Well, actually, no, it does have a very timeless quality. I mean, it could take place really at any time. It's obviously if you take out certain things, payphones or whatever, and little other things, BMX biking, whatever. But the story itself is pretty timeless, and it helps with the fact that really this world that Pee-wee and everybody inhabits is kind of a goofy, weird, which is the case for a lot of Tim Burton movies. His worlds are just outside the norm, so they can kind of be anytime, any place.
Be a Tim Burton film.
Yeah, basically a Tim Burton film. You're right. You'll always know a Tim Burton film when you see it. So yeah, I think it does hold it with the laughter still there, and it's still good family fun. Honestly, it's great. Watch for kids. I think they'll really enjoy it. Asian adults, who watched this when we were kids. I remember watching this. It came out in '85, so I was 10. So I probably didn't see it was on cable. So I was probably like 11, 12 when I saw it. So it's about your age first time I saw it. And now here I am, 48 years old, and it still gets a laugh out of me. I still heavily enjoy it. And, it's just a fun movie. So definitely I give it a 10 out of 10. Crazy bicycles with truck horns.
No, bicycle horns, but they sound like trucks.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So that's it for this quick,
tribute, and it gets introduction for me.
Yeah, and I think this is something we may do with him. I'm gonna try and get maybe a couple of movies that now that I get him to sit down and actually pay attention to movies more than I could. I may pull some of these classics off the shelves and get him to sit here and watch them and see what he thinks about them. See how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is it for now. So until next time, this is Chuck and
Chris,
and we will see you on the other side.
Slide.
He does this on purpose.
No, I didn't. All right.